important concepts. The one that we know of very well, where he says, and referring to the ayah in Surah An-Nisa, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, الرِّجَالُ قَوَّامُونَ عَلَى النِّسَاءِ. Okay, that men are the maintainers, the qawwam of over women. And qawwamun is translated as, maintainers, as protectors, providers, the ones who take care of something. And the important thing to understand from this is that, so let's ask this question. So what is it the man is supposed to provide? It's an easy question, right? I want to show you how easy it is. So raise your hand if you can tell me what a man is supposed to provide for his wife, or his family. Yes. Whatever you want to name. Clothes, food, roof, shelter. Huh? Protection like what? Keep them safe, okay. You mean like shelter, like give them a home? Defend them, very good. Good, what else?
I think within these three main things, it comes love, compassion, everything that they need comes within these three, because you wouldn't do that for just anybody. You do that for someone or your family or your parents. So these three acts are acts of responsibility that would only go to a man, makes a man a man.
Okay, so how many people, anybody have a cat?
I do.
Okay, do you give your cat a shelter? Do you give them food? Wait, so how is that different? Yes. So then, because you were saying that you would do this only if you love them, right? So maybe, perhaps, there should be love, obviously, yes. Trying to build a future with them. Okay, what does that mean? Okay, so working on common goals together, taking care of a family, taking care of children. Good. See, what I'm trying to show you is that I think this concept is actually a little bit more nuanced, a little bit more complex than we think. Okay, and that was the goal of why I was doing this exercise. Because if you say, food, clothing, shelter, then you run out of things to say how a man provides, right? But in fact, yeah.
It's not like the man can provide for his wife. Both of them, they should share giving. It's not only one giving and the other one receiving. Both of them, they work to build family and build future and build society, like Muslim society. It's not like only one giving. What I'm going to give it to her, or she'll give it to me. No.
So you're saying the wife has to provide for the husband. So is the wife's responsibility? She's the qawwam. She has to.
The qawama is not about only, it's not only food and money.
Yes, that's exactly my point.
The thing is, you cannot build a family by only one, and he's the one who's supposed to do everything. He has his job to do, and she has her job to do. So both of them are completing each other, like plus and minus.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we've been covering that. So what he says. So what the concept of qawwam that I want to focus on, beyond just the financial, right? But beyond just the money, the food, and the drink and the shelter and the clothing. In fact, this reminds me of something that happened, when I was getting married. It's easy to get married, right? You just go to an imam and they kind of do your nikah, and that it just happens. The sheikh that I chose to do my nikah, he's from a predominantly a convert community, and for that reason, what they do is they don't just a man comes and a woman comes with her wali and they say, we want to get married. He sits them down and does the nikah, and then they don't do that. And the reason they don't do that is because they don't know, the imam doesn't know, the masjid doesn't know how much these people know about their rights. So what they do is they give a little booklet to the man, they give a little booklet to the woman, and then 1 week later, okay, before the nikah happens, a few days before the nikah, the imam will call the husband, the groom, the wife, and her wali on the phone, okay? And the booklet that they gave him, 5-6 pages long, which is not that long, he'll quiz them on what you have to, what are the responsibilities, what are your duties and your responsibilities, and what are your duties and your responsibilities. And the shaykh, he asked me, and I felt like so confident. I'm like, of course I know this stuff. He says, well, okay, what's the responsibility of the man? So I said, to provide for the woman. He says, okay, what do you provide? He says, food, shelter, and clothing. And he said, okay, what else? And I was just quiet. I was like, whatever else she needs. He's like, what? What are the needs? And that was exactly the point, is that we don't understand that there are other needs than just these monetary financial needs. And the biggest one of them is her emotional well-being. That she needs support, she needs friends, she needs to hang out, she needs entertainment, she needs, just like you do, right? Maybe you go play sports, if you're into sports, you go hang out with your friends, you hang out after the masjid, after the halaqah, you go to, eat out, you go, just like you need to socialize, she needs to socialize. And that is not a small thing. And we talked about the importance of, mental well-being, a few khutbahs ago, and that's a critically important topic, because sometimes the financial stuff is actually easy. The financial stuff is actually easy, because she could, as the brother mentioned, she could go and get a job. She could. She doesn't have to, but she could, right? But it's the other things, right? So psychological well-being, emotional well-being, that make sure, she sleeps well. That, if she has a headache, that you're not forcing her to do something, you're not burdening her with extra work, and the kids, their homework needs to be done, and she's got a severe migraine. Right? How many people get migraines? Raise your hand if you get a really, really bad migraine. I think some of you are shy because migraines are very common. So I'm sure, when you get a really bad headache, it's so severe, you want to close your eyes, you feel like throwing up, and your sound bothers you, light bothers you, and your head is throbbing, it's like pounding. Okay? So imagine a woman who has to help her, 3 kids with their homework while making their dinner, while the laundry is happening, while this thing needs to happen, right? So the emotional well-being is equally important, if not more important, and that's something that we don't think about. Think about how much do we focus. First of all, we have to take care of this on our own, and we talked about this in the earlier chapters, that we look after ourselves physically and we look after ourselves mentally. But your responsibility is beyond that. You don't just focus on yourself, your own socialization, your own fun, your own emotional well-being, but also the emotional well-being of your family. So, and that is critically important. And that is, just as you don't do injustice with the financial aspects, that you don't do injustice in the emotional aspects, right? And so, and also intellectually, right? There's intellectual well-being. Think about her development. Are you providing her with education, right? You go listen to the halaqah, right? Nowadays we have halaqahs are all recorded online and available for men and women, but there was a time when they weren't. And also some halaqat might not be interesting for her, but maybe she wants to take a class, right? She wants to take a class in the fiqh of women's issues, right? She wants to take maybe, or fiqh of whatever. She wants to take a tafsir class. But have you asked her? Have you advocated, promoted the fact that she should grow herself intellectually? Right? That's also your obligation, to provide for her in those ways. And those are things that we don't think about. And sometimes we don't think about that for ourselves, but certainly we don't think about that for other people in our families. So this is why the Prophet ﷺ, he said that we have this obligation of taking care of those who are under our protection. And there's a famous hadith where the Prophet ﷺ, he says, "Kullukum ra'in," that all of you are shepherds, all of you are leaders, right? And then he says a ruler is a shepherd. Ruler is a shepherd for all of the people that are under his rule. A man is a shepherd of his family. A woman is the shepherd of her husband's house and children. For each of you is a shepherd, and each of you is responsible of those under his care. And so we can't just be responsible for the physical aspects. We can't just be responsible for the financial aspects. But we have to make sure and be thoughtful, cognizant of the fact that we have to be responsible for also the emotional well-being and also the intellectual growth. And so then the Shaykh, he talks about the kind treatment of women. So all of this time we've talked a lot about the roles and responsibilities of the man. And then the Shaykh, he says, just as Islam has required man to treat his wife kindly and to take care of her properly, so it has commanded the wife to obey him within the limits of permissibility, fairness, and justice. And there he mentions a few hadith. In one of them, he says that in Bukhari and Muslim, the Prophet ﷺ, he says, any woman who dies and her husband is pleased with her will enter paradise. And another hadith in Bukhari and Muslim, the Prophet ﷺ, he says, the woman is not permitted to fast when her husband is present without his permission, or invite anyone into his house without his permission. And all of this emphasizes the role of the woman. Certainly is a shepherd, but she has to do things in consultation, as the brother was saying, right? When we run the household, it has to be done in consultation, right? And think about when was the last time? This comes up commonly, like, oh, women, or this woman is disobedient, or this women are this kind of concept or this kind of saying comes up a lot. And if you think about, can men be disobedient? Can men be disobedient? Right? The question is, if you really think about the question, right? Do you necessarily have to have when you say obedience, right? It requires that there's a command or an order, right? It requires a command or an order, and that makes it sound like there's some kind of friction. There's a command and an order, and then somebody has to obey that. But that's not the way that families need to be run. And in fact, most families don't run that way. In fact, I don't think the family of the Prophet ﷺ didn't run that way. You don't see commands and orders like, do this now, do that this way. And the way the Prophet ﷺ, he did anything with anyone was with shura. In fact, the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, they would say, we have never seen anyone do more shura, more consultation than Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right? Imagine that one man, who could do whatever he wants without asking anyone. It would be him. But he didn't. And the companion says he would do the most shura of all of us. And so imagine if you're running a home, right? And I'm not talking about a grocery store, a deli, a market where you might be the supervisor and you have people under you, right? If you want people to follow you, right? And this is what good managers and supervisors know. That is, you involve people in the decision making, right? You say, oh, what do you think? Our sales are down. What do you think about doing this or that? Should we do this or this way or that way? What do you think about these ideas? They say, oh yeah, this idea sounds great. And then that person feels like it's his idea. And then when you decide on, yes, this is what we're going to apply, then everyone is doing the same thing because they felt like they were consulted in the first place. If this is how you run a store, a business, then how about the most delicate aspect of your life, which is your family? You think this is where the hammer comes down and everyone has to listen and obey? Right? So this is, consultations happen. And that is the way that decisions are made. And so, it's, if you think about is there obedience, you should never have to think about, is there obedience from the wife? Right? Because all the decisions should be equally her decision. Ultimately, the man makes a decision, but the consultation and the discussion happen so much that everybody feels like this is my decision. Right? He didn't really tell me to do this because this is what we agreed on. And that's the way that a household should be run. And certainly because, it's a very delicate, very important part of the community. And lastly, the Shaykh, he says, Islam has set out standards for women and has defined the kind of clothing she should wear and when she goes out in the street or appears in front of men who are non-mahram. And so obviously he's saying that there are people, and these are the kinds of things that cause tension between people, right? So he's saying that there are clear standards for her to follow. And so if you educate them, right, if you help them get educated on these issues, then they understand how they need to behave, right? I can't remember, I've been married for 16 years, I can't remember ever telling my wife once how to dress. Right? I mean, it just doesn't, this is the case for most of you. This is the vast majority of us, this is how we live. Like, we don't have to tell, they're not, they know how to act Islamically, then you don't need to tell them how to dress or how to act or how to, be in public. Right? So it goes back to providing that education. And then lastly, the Shaykh, he concludes with this paragraph that I'll read and we'll conclude with. He says the role of al-qawam, of the protector or the caretaker, maintainer over women, which Islam gives to men, cannot truly be fulfilled unless the husband is a successful leader of his family. The Muslim husband does not assert his manhood through roughness, cruelty, violence, and harsh words. The Muslim husband does not assert his manhood through roughness, cruelty, violence, and harsh words. This is the manhood of ignorance, of jahiliyyah. Islamic manhood is something else altogether. The Islamic ideal of manhood is a strong and likable personality, a noble attitude, tolerance and forgiveness of minor mistakes, strong adherence to the laws of Allah, and determination to apply them to every member of his family. Brilliant leadership in guiding his family to the truth, generosity without being extravagant, a thorough understanding of his responsibilities in this world and the next, and a clear idea of the ideal Muslim home. So with that, I conclude this chapter. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the tawfiq to develop this excellence in our character towards our spouses. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put barakah and love and mercy in our hearts towards our families and make us better families and a better community. Jazakumullahu khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
the charity and for